The National Desk, America's News Now. Now on the National Desk, the debt extension agreement facing its first test in Congress as opposition to the bill continues to grow.
And you're a firm no?
Unless something changes on the bill, absolutely, I'm triple no.
Those behind artificial intelligence out with a new warning, putting the human race on notice.
My worst fears are that we, the field, the technology, the industry, cause significant harm to the world.
And Main Street confidence in the economy taking a hit, driving up recession fears. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez. Right now, the House Rules Committee meeting, debating the proposed legislation that came from the debt ceiling agreement between President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy over the weekend. Now, it must pass this committee in order for there to be a full House floor vote tomorrow. But with division among the Republicans, it may be easier said than done. Right now, hard-right Republicans warning they're not on the same page as the Speaker.
Tomorrow's bill is a bunch of fake news and fake talking points that will do nothing to rein in out-of-control federal spending.
Folks, it's time to go back to the drawing table. It's time for us to say no.
Speaker McCarthy now has to fend off his own party as he stands by the deal that he has agreed to.
I've talked to many about whether they're for or against the bill. I'm not sure what in the bill people are concerned about. It is the largest savings of $2.1 trillion we've ever had.
Citing all the Republican infighting, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat, of course, concerned that there won't be enough votes to get this bill through the Republican majority House and send it off to the Democrat-led Senate.
What we all are interested in is how many votes are the Republicans who negotiated this resolution going to produce. Initially, we heard that 95% of the House Republican Conference supports the agreement. That doesn't appear to be the case.
Now, the first stop is the House Rules Committee going on right now. If the legislation is going to be blocked, this is where it could happen. National correspondent Christine Frizzell brings us up to speed.
Well, I'm glad the speaker's here today.
Despite the stops and starts, negotiations between President Joe Biden and Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy were only Chapter 1. Selling the bill to the disparate edges of each party is the latest challenge.
Not one Republican should vote for this deal. It is a bad deal.
This is about folks like the hard right of the Republican Party coming after a chunk of funding from the IRS so they can let their billionaire buddies off the hook who are cheating on taxes.
For the White House, which initially insisted there would be no negotiations on raising the debt limit, reaching a deal was the cost of doing business in Washington.
It's the nature of governing that you have to compromise, and we think that we struck a fair compromise here.
That compromise, named the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023, puts a freeze on most non-military spending for 2 years, redirects billions of dollars in IRS funding and unspent COVID money, adds work requirements for some receiving federal benefits, and most importantly, raises the debt limit until January of 2025. But by how much? No one knows. A sticking point for Republicans who say they'll vote no.
Blank check, as it doesn't actually set a debt limit. This is an unlimited debt increase.
But Speaker Kevin McCarthy spent the day continuing to make the hard sell.
If people are against saving all that money or work reforms in welfare reform, I can't do anything about it.
At least some members of the Rules Committee falling in line.
Indeed, this is the most consequential spending reduction bill in more than a decade.
This bill could have been a lot more awful than it is.
So here on Capitol Hill, we're now entering into hour 3 of this Rules Committee hearing. And despite rumblings from members on both sides of the aisle, you know, this vote for the full House has been set now for tomorrow night. And if it passes, Eugene, it will then go on to the Senate.
Sure. Now, Christine, one of the biggest question marks on the Rules Committee was Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie. Do we know how he's going to vote?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've got 2 other conservatives making their case as to why they are not going to. But Thomas Massie, a little while ago, said he does anticipate voting to get for the rule to get the legislation out of committee, which means it will then pass. But this hasn't been the sort of smooth sailing that Kevin McCarthy seemed to predict.
Christine Frizzell at the Capitol, thank you. Developing now, a shooting investigation in Hollywood, Florida. Police there looking for 3 suspects after 9 people were shot along the Hollywood Beach boardwalk last night. A 1-year-old was among the injured shooting victims. Investigators say a fight broke out between 2 groups there. Then the gunfire erupted. Right now, 2 people are in custody, but police say they're looking for at least 3 others. 6 adults and 3 children were those who were hurt, including that 1-year-old that I was telling you about. All reportedly stable right now. 3 have already been sent home from area hospitals. A frightening scene out of Clark County, Washington. At least 10 people were evacuated from the Ireland Greens adult family home. You see it here. That facility for seniors and people with disabilities was destroyed in an early morning fire. The flames just too much for the water supply at hand, consuming this structure. The cause still under investigation at this hour. And right now, people in Davenport, Iowa are protesting a city order to demolish a partially collapsed building after a survivor was rescued from inside the building last night. 5 people are still unaccounted for right now after Sunday's collapse, and the remains of 2 people are believed to be in a pile of rubble there at the site. The city ordered the demolition for this morning, but protesters are pushing back after that woman was rescued less than 24 hours ago. A fire marshal saying that additional search efforts, though, could cause another collapse at that unstable building. The city says it's evaluating the timing of the demolition now. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis kicked off his presidential campaign tour today in Iowa as part of plans to visit 12 cities in 3 states this week. His first stop was a megachurch in Des Moines. The trip follows DeSantis' launch last week, marred by technical issues that campaign officials called a minor setback. His campaign is looking to maximize super PAC money and keep up with former President Trump in Iowa. Now, Trump also planning to visit Iowa on Thursday after DeSantis leaves. Trump gaining some support right now. A Monmouth University poll shows 43% of Republican voters want to see him as a 2024 nominee compared to 26% in December. Big difference there. DeSantis' support dropping from 39% down now to just 19%. Former First Lady Rosalind Carter battling dementia. The statement today from the Carter Center saying, quote, she continues to live happily at home with her husband, enjoying spring in Plains and visits with loved ones. The Carter Center saying that it's sharing her condition in hopes it will help families around the country have conversations about their health with each other and their doctors. The Biden family honoring the late Beau Biden today. The president and first lady were among the family members at a memorial mass in Delaware. Beau Biden died 8 years ago today from brain cancer. He was an Iraq war veteran and served as Delaware's attorney general for 2 terms. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's impeachment trial will start no later than August 28th. Now, Paxton is currently suspended from office after being temporarily removed by the State House Saturday. If he's convicted of bribery and abuse of public trust by a 2/3 majority in the Senate, he'll be removed from office officially.
What seems to be a longstanding form of corruption has now been voted out, and I think that is a significant step for the integrity of the state and for our Constitution.
Now, as the Senate prepares for the trial, attention turns now to Paxton's wife, who's a state senator, Angela Paxton. She has not said whether she'll recuse herself from those proceedings. State law says that she must attend the trial, but does not state whether she has to participate. The Attorney General brushing it all off as a political proceeding. Today, leaders in tech and AI development issuing a dire warning to the world about misusing artificial intelligence. 350 scientists and big tech executives signed onto the one-sentence statement issued by the nonprofit Center for AI Safety, saying, as you read there, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. This comes 2 weeks after OpenAI CEO Sam Altman testified before Congress, saying if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong. Many members in Congress on both sides of the aisle are working right now on how to regulate the emerging technology. June is Pride Month, and right now more businesses are in the spotlight for how they respond to conservative outrage over their diversity efforts, like selling Pride-themed merchandise, for example. Here's the National Desk's Zatra El-Nashar.
Culture wars coming to a store near you. Kohl's, the latest company to face threats of a boycott from conservative activists and media voices. The catalyst? This onesie with a person holding the Progress Pride flag. Critics say the retailer is targeting kids, calling it inappropriate. As of airtime, Kohl's did not respond to our request for comment. Kohl's has been participating in Pride Month for years. So has Target for more than a decade, which the company pointed out when announcing it's pulling some of its Pride items after receiving threats.
and they've told all the employees to go.
Authorities investigating bomb threats at Target stores in Utah, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Target getting additional backlash from those who say they compromise their values.
We now, in the southern stores, have to walk all the way to the back. This is where Pride stuff is. This is not ally behavior.
It's hard to quantify the impact of this backlash. Retail stocks have already been struggling over the past year as consumers shift spending away from goods and towards services. Critics point to a recent drop in Target stock, but around the same time, the company released a disappointing earnings report coming off an already slow year. Levi's and North Face have also faced conservative criticism for their Pride campaigns or inclusive marketing. Bud Light garnering the most attention for recalibrating its marketing after a recent boycott and drop in sales.
I don't believe that companies are going to completely go away from that. They might have to be a little more careful about how it's represented in this new political environment that we're seeing.
In recent years, boycotts have had tangible short-term effects, but companies have weathered the storm.
Pick a company and we can find inclusive messaging that they've given in the past. There's only, so many things that you can get enraged about until there's no restaurants left to eat at, no food left to eat, or, places to go.
The jury's still out on the impact of the outrage. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar reporting.
The number of Americans traveling by plane over Memorial Day weekend topped pre-COVID levels. Check it out here. A TSA reporting nearly 9.8 million passengers screened or passed through security checks over the 4-day weekend. That's about 300,000 more than over the same holiday weekend back in 2019. 2.74 million passengers were screened Friday alone. That's the most in a single day since November of 2019. The FAA saying that Thursday had the nation's highest post-COVID daily traffic, more than 54,000 flights. Coming up here on the National Desk, why a major airline was sued today. We're going to detail the allegations in this consumer class action lawsuit. That a major new economic metric is out, what it suggests about many Americans' state of mind, and fascinating new research about heart issues and diabetes, the specific changes you can make to improve your health. Coming up in 90 seconds. Following some breaking news now, New Jersey prosecutors have announced a murder charge against this man here from Virginia in the fatal shooting of a councilwoman, Eunice Jumfor. This is Rashad Ali Bynum. He was arrested this morning and charged with first-degree murder. The 28-year-old said to have known Jumfor from church. The Republican councilwoman was shot outside of her home back in February. Delta Airlines facing a new lawsuit today over allegations the company inaccurately marketed itself as the world's first carbon-neutral airline. The airline buys carbon credits to cancel out emissions through projects aiming to counteract pollution. Well, the consumer class action lawsuit claims any benefits from the carbon offsets are probably temporary and would have occurred regardless of Delta's purchase. Theranos CEO Elizabeth Holmes in custody today as she begins her defrauding investors in her failed blood testing company. She has been free on bail since her conviction last January, the judge recommending that she serve at a federal women's prison in Bryan, Texas. That's about 100 miles from Houston. The trial of the man accused of a mass shooting at a Pittsburgh synagogue started today. The 2018 shooting left 11 people dead and 7 hurt at the Tree of Life synagogue. 50-year-old Robert Bowers faces 63 charges, including hate crimes resulting in death. He could receive the death penalty. The trial happening right now at this federal court in downtown Pittsburgh. Taking a look at your money now, consumer confidence dipping once again. The Conference Board reported today that the Consumer Confidence Index was 102.3 in May. That's down from 103.7 in the month of April. It's the fourth time in 5 months the index sees a drop. Experts say it was led by older Americans becoming more pessimistic about the labor market, on top of course, inflation woes. The board's expectations index, which looks ahead 6 months at income and labor conditions, inched lower as well to 71.5 points. That's a reading under 80, which often points to a coming recession. Still, consumer spending remains strong despite rising prices. The U.S. Department of Treasury Office of Foreign Assets Control announced today sanctions on 17 individuals and entities in China and Mexico tied to the making of and or distribution of counterfeit drugs, often laced with deadly fentanyl. All of the properties and interests of those sanctioned are now being banned here in the United States. But as fentanyl overdoses still plague the country, one father in Bethesda, Maryland, is making it his life's work right now to make it easier for everyone around the country to find out if the pills they are taking are clean or contain fentanyl. Take a look.
My children, their friend's brother, who's a high school student, died from a Percocet pill, counterfeit, that was laced with fentanyl.
Robert Hooten is the president of Bethesda-based company Team Vaccinate. He's leading the charge to fight a crisis that claims the lives of more than 150 people a day. And for him, it's personal.
We were at a basketball game that memorialized his passing, and you could hear a pin drop here at the school, and it was just very, very moving.
His goal is to save lives, leading the lobbying charge on legalizing fentanyl test strips across the country and increasing access. He started lobbying for legislation back in January, cold calling and emailing senators and representatives to do something.
It's just terrible because teens are dying, and unfortunately, it's going to continue happening.
Last week, he saw the fruits of his labor. Bipartisan legislation called the STRIP Act was introduced last week in Congress. The bill would legalize fentanyl test strips nationwide.
Every parent I've spoken with is so happy to hear that there's another tool out there that their children will have when they're not around. If they're at a party, they're studying for an exam.
The proposed law would take the testing strips off of the drug paraphernalia list. In Maryland and Virginia, the test strips are legal, and in D.C., they have been decriminalized. Right now, the tests are mostly available at clinics and public health centers, and getting one isn't easy. Hooten tells 7 News his team has also been talking to the CEO of CVS, asking them to consider making testing strips available over the counter at drugstores.
Any parent and every parent will do anything they can to make sure that their child is living.
That was Alina Shirazi reporting. The Supreme Court is weighing whether the University of North Carolina and Harvard discriminated against white and Asian American applicants. According to a new Associated Press NORC poll, most Americans, 63%, think that colleges should be able to consider race and ethnicity in admissions. But a majority, 68%, also think that race and ethnicity are not at all the most important factor in the process. Most feel that high school grades are most important to consider. China rejected a proposal from the United States to meet with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. The Pentagon says that China declined an invitation for Austin to meet his Chinese counterpart in Singapore this week. This coming after recent events like the decision to shoot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon strained relations between the two countries. The Pentagon said the refusal will not deter America from seeking better lines of communications with China. Tensions continue to escalate between Ukraine and Russia. Moscow was the target of at least 8 drones today in the first attack to reach civilian areas in the city. It followed an assault on the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv last night, the latest in a series there. The Russian Defense Ministry called today's strike a terrorist attack by Ukraine. An advisor to Ukrainian President Zelensky said Kyiv was not directly involved. The National Desk taking the pulse of America. We start with a teenage convicted murderer on the run.
For the third time in 2 years, a statewide manhunt for teens who escaped this juvenile detention center in Snoqualmie.
They should take more safety measures, fencing, and hiring more staff.
Authorities have named 3 of the 4 teens still missing, nearly staff member and stealing her car, which was found in Vancouver, Washington. A guard tells Como News it's common for the teens to become violent with Echo Glen staff.
There's been a few escapes. 9 incidents where staff got beaten,
I mean, just 2 weeks ago, they put one staff member in the hospital.
Como has not been able to talk to those who run Echo Glen about these claims. Jesse Krikorian Jr. had been serving time in Echo Glen for the murder of a 16-year-old outside a high school in Yakima. Ramon Chavez Jr. and Daniel Navarro both have criminal histories involving assault.
This building at the corner of Southeast Oak Street and Southeast 13th Avenue was the target of graffiti and broken windows before, to the point where landlord Brad McComber is losing hope that it will stop.
We haven't called the police anymore. There's nothing they're going to do about it. There's a number that you can call to have the city come out and remove homeless tents. And you can call as many times as you want, and no one ever comes out.
But Sunday night, Portland police quickly responded after receiving a 911 call and arrested 29-year-old Evan Hunt for criminal mischief. Hunt is listed as homeless in the police report, and this isn't his first encounter with police.
We don't have a homeless problem in Portland. We have a mental health problem and a drug problem.
Like McComber, other business owners in the area think the city is not addressing the root of the problem.
This woman's family and friends tell me they refuse to give up hope, but they fear their loved one is in serious danger.
Friends say Nikki Alcaraz is a beautiful woman with a wonderful personality. Patsy Smiley has been a friend of the family since before Nikki was born. Alcaraz is from Ashland City and was headed to Southern California with her boyfriend to visit her uncle. Relatives say she was last seen in Moriarty, New Mexico on May 6th.
Coming up on the National Desk, new research shedding light on simple steps that could greatly improve your heart health. Well, you've heard this before. Don't skip leg day. A new study shows people with stronger leg muscles may have a lower risk of heart failure after a heart attack. The study's authors say after a heart attack, the heart goes through changes that can impact the size and function of the heart. Well, researchers say they think exercise can alter those changes in a good way. Their findings show how important it is to exercise regularly and maintain muscle strength, especially in older age. The time of day of workout could also have a big impact on your health. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains.
Hey there, everybody. There is no bad time of day to exercise, but a new study shows if you have diabetes and you want to get the best benefit from your workout, afternoon workouts may help control blood sugar levels so much you may be able to reduce medication and complications from diabetes. In this study on exercise timing in type 2 diabetes, just released in the journal Diabetes Care, researchers found compared to mornings, afternoon workouts better manage blood sugar levels.
Our bodies are supposed to move, so the more we move them, the better we feel. We can't cure things necessarily with exercise, but we can help you overcome the symptoms.
Karen Sims specializes in medical exercise programs at Ohio's TriHealth Fitness. Diabetes, which may be better managed by fitness, can be everything from loss of limbs to fatigue to kidney failure. There were 2,400 people in this study. All of them were overweight and living with type 2 diabetes. As part of the study, they were all hooked up to a device that measures vibration or acceleration of motion to measure physical activity. Researchers found at the end of the first year, those who did moderate to vigorous physical activity in the afternoon had the greatest reduction in blood sugar levels. By the fourth year, not only did they maintain these drops, but they also had the greatest chance of getting off medication.
The biggest thing, and I think when we're talking about fatigue, which is some of the symptoms that people are seeing, it helps increase our metabolism. So that's how much energy we're using. The more energy we use, the more energy our body makes. It's kind of like if you use it, it makes more. If you don't use it, it just sits there.
So you don't want it to just sit there when you could be using it to feel better, of course. Now the authors of this study are saying that even with this trial, there's still no bad time of day to exercise, diabetes or not. If you can't do it in the afternoon, any time of day still can help manage blood sugar levels and much more than no exercise at all. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonis. Now back to you.
We're back in 90 seconds. Check this out. The 4 astronauts on the private AX-2 SpaceX mission are headed back home. The SpaceX Dragon capsule Freedom disengaged from the International Space Station this morning shortly after 11 a.m. Eastern. It's expected to splash down off the Florida coast tonight around 11 p.m. Join me again tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern for the evening edition of The National Desk. And for the very latest information at any time, visit us online at thenationaldesk.com. Thanks so much for watching. See you later.